Hey there everyone, AJ back again for the Mighty Gluestick channel, home of some of the most detailed videos on Dungeons & Dragons lore, and today, well, this video is a long time in the making. It is going to be some pretty nerdy stuff here as we delve finally into the Dawn War. The whole thing from start to finish, why it happened, and what other stuff was going on while the forces of creation attempted to tear each other apart. I have a grand story to tell you, so stay a while and listen. It all began with the plan to create the Lattice of Heaven, an astral superhighway that would have linked all of the astral domains of the gods, creating a single divine realm of superlative efficiency and order. The gods Erathis, Moradin, and Corellon were central to the Lattice's creation. Erathis had hoped that the communication and immediate transportation the Lattice would have allowed could have created a whole new type of community among the gods, turning what had resembled a widely scattered group of city-states into a single densely populated and integrated nation. As the god of civilization, Erathis thought that she would play a major role, in an integrated heaven, even if other deities hadn't fully realized the implications of this lattice and the power that it would give her. During the construction era, the Obrynths, entities of unfathomable evil from another universe, having consumed or destroyed everything in their own universe, then fashioned all of their hatred and hunger into a single horrific shard of pure evil, which they used to pierce the veil between universes. This intrusion either came by way of the Far Realm or actually created or connected the Far Realm. It's hard to say with the warped space and time present there. The Far Realm incursion into the multiverse brought with it a new kind of energy, one the gods in particular felt very keenly, as the Far Realm infused psychic energy into everything. The gods now had access to the force of will of their worshippers, something we now take for granted in the lore, but at this point in history, there were no such thing as divine portfolios, and the gods were all very much like the Primordials in many ways. But this would soon change. 4th edition lore states that the incursion of the Far Realm into normal space coincided with the shattering of Lakal, but we are getting ahead of ourselves. Tharizdun was the first to notice the Shard of Ultimate Evil, and in grabbing it, it drove him mad with the desire to unmake reality. The moment he crossed the boundary between D&D universe and the Obrynths universe, the cosmic structure was shattered, and many alternate versions of the universe were created, spawned from the power of Tharizdun and the twisted chaos of the Far Realm. One of these alternate realities included the homeworld of the Shan. Luckily, he had enough sense to leave and left he partially repelled the whispers that were built into the shard, telling him to put the shard in the astral sea itself, and instead planted it in the elemental chaos, resulting in the creation of the abyss. The 12 surviving Obrynths fled their dying reality, expecting to corrupt the new universe from the abyss created within the astral plane, but found Tharizdun had smashed a hole in reality with the elemental planes instead. The Obrynths entering the elemental chaos, where they fought Tharizdun and duelled several primordials, reaching a stalemate before Obox Ob, Pazuzu, Dagon and the Queen of Chaos, Pale Knight and the Unleashed Cybriexes, among others, plunged into the newly formed abyss. Obox Ob, a mighty Obrynth, claimed the Shard of Pure Evil and became the first Prince of Demons, seeking to replant it in the Astral Sea as his fellow Obrynths who created it designed. He was soon unseated by a shocking betrayal by the Queen of Chaos, who had learned to channel the worst aspects of the universe into living engines of destruction, spawned by the Cybriex flesh shapers from the raw stuff of the abyss itself, and created the first demons. Lost but not forgotten, the Shard of Pure Evil still burrows deeper to this day, creating more layers of the abyss. As it travelled around the primordial plane and many other outer and lower planes, the Shard also corrupted many beings, creating new, dark and twisted versions of them. In the case of the fetid fluids and solids that Tharizdun traversed across the plane of entropy, the Shard was planted in the Great Mire and instilled in them an abhorrent form of life and sentience, creating the being now known as Deweyblix, who then retreated from the coming conflict and meditated on his existence and greater purpose in his new home in Shedakla. Tharizdun, under the alias of the eldest of Primordials, he reinvented himself in his madness, the Elder Elemental Eye, marshalled the uncorrupted Primordials and the denizens of the Elemental Chaos in order to try to overwhelm the combined might of the Queen of Chaos's new demon host, along with the generals of this new force, including Demogorgon, Orcus, and other new demon princes. Many joined Tharizdun willingly, deceived with promises that Tharizdun had no intention of keeping. Some of those primordials, such as Kodrakun and his chief lieutenant Miska the Wolf Spider, joined Tharizdun in the Abyss, and in the course of the conflict were corrupted into demon princes by the Queen of Chaos, joining her and adding to her forces, while others, such as the elemental princes, still have no knowledge of Tharizdun's true form and continue to spread his cult from the elemental chaos. These princes of elemental evil are called the Archomentals, and their elemental cultists believed, as they still do, that the Elder Elemental Eye could regain the Shard of Pure Evil. He could lead them to victory over the meddlesome gods and the mortals of the Astral Sea. The reason this makes little sense, obviously, is that Tharizdun was already insane and sought to destroy the entire universe, the entire multiverse. In several of the alternate realities created when he passed through the barrier between universes, Tharizdun succeeded in destroying the multiverse. These alternate worlds, this Tharizdun ascended into something beyond all ken. The remnants of the destroyed universe coalesced into an aberrant creature called the Shan, or the Shans, eventually finding their way back to the Underdark of the world. Another alternate destroyed and sentient universe was later pivotal in the capture and control of Tharizdun. Led by the powerful deity He Who Was, who many theorize was the god who created the first humans, the gods overwhelmed and chained Tharizdun away in an alternate universe, sealed away within a massive crystal prison, and set Asmodeus, foremost servant of He Who Was, to be the internal prison keeper in the ethereal plane, the deep ethereal. Tharizdun was safely contained for the moment, and the gods renamed him the Chained God, and struck his name from the annals of history. His armies were scattered but not defeated, and were marshalled and now led by Miska the Wolf Spider, and they fought on. The incomplete lattice was shattered during the Primordials' first invasion into the astral plane. Many gods were also killed, joining the roster of the dead, including Lakau, the living realm, goddess of the Quam, and the many gods whose titanic forms still drift in the astral mists. Many primordials also drift there too. As the lattice of heaven was sundered, the divine dominions were scattered. Lore suggests that the destruction was caused by the primordial forces' theft of the Rune of Stone Eternal, a mythical glyph that gave the lattice strength enough to bind the different dominions. After the destruction of the lattice of heaven, the divine dominions stopped functioning at full power and effectiveness, pretty much to this day. Many mortals who were travelling to their god's dominion to become exalted, or soul-form beings in service of their specific gods, suffered the repercussions of this event. Instead, waking up on the shores of the border islands surrounding each of the dominions, they are cursed with the name Outsiders because they are physically unable to enter the dominion of their god. So far as anyone knows, the only true fixed locations in the Astral Sea are occupied by the few functioning divine dominions that still maintain some sort of connection with the skeleton of the original divine lattice, the divine domains, known as the Outer Planes, represented by a cosmic wheel. These are the domains that still have some connection to each other. For example, the river Styx and the river Oceanus, and the Green Path and the Colour Pools. The angel trails are temporary roads between the dominions that only angels create and use, and are testament to the still existing connection between the angels and the lattice. Most of the arcs last for a day or three, or at most a week, as angels of two dominions trade positions, information and tasks, flowing back and forth along the trail almost too quickly to be perceived. From the plane of Mechanus, the entities of ultimate order, the Modrons, make a specific inspection and accounting of the shattered planes of the lattice in what has become known as the Great Modron March. Primus, first among the Modrons, created and installed a massive, geometrically complex stone of order deep in the heart of Limbo, which had the effect of stabilizing the spreading chaos within the outer planes. It also created the first Slard as a side effect, and is now known as the Spawning Stone. It may be that the gems found in the brain of the Slard, all the Slard who spawned directly from the stone, are remnants of the original stone of Rune of Stone Eternal. which the spawning stone seems to emulate to a much lesser extent. It would seem that this is a site of great importance to the structure of the lattice, as is the super fortress Malsheem in Nessus, the heart of the Nine Hells, Cronius, the peak of the seven mountain heavens of Cilicia, and Sigil, the city of doors. There may be others, but these cosmic locations seem to form an important axis. Moradin and Arathis are not likely to disclose the overall plans for the lattice, obviously, for obvious reasons. Arathis' agenda includes plans to remake the lattice by using existing pieces of it, using knowledge gained in her campaign of the Game of Making, by restoring shattered dominions and placing new gods to rule over the dominions where they are repaired. This plan might take eons, but Arathis is convinced that the universe cannot be rebuilt into a better, more civilized place until the lattice and the astral sea have been remade and repaired and reconfigured. The destruction of the lattice was not the start of the Dawn War. It really had been brewing for a while. Some think it was the creation of the dragons by Io. Combining his creations with powerful elemental magic, Io symbolically claimed dominion of all the elementals and elements, and by extension sovereignty over the primordials themselves. This would certainly have soured relations between the gods and primordials, who had been getting on reasonably okay. The primordials also got up to some very ruthless behavior, such as what the dwarf race now remembers as the Age of Chains, when the giants and titans descended upon Moradin's creation of Stone Root, the mightiest mountain in the world, and besieged it, seeking to enslave the dwarves and ultimately provoking retaliation from Moradin when he became aware of his creation's strife. The dwarven culture has been modelled in many ways on that of the ancient giants, including their secret mastery of forbidden and powerful elemental rune magic. The dwarves spent over 100 generations enslaved by the giants, still worshipping Moradin in secret, but their uprising against the giants in the Age of Strife was an incredible conflict. One iconic emblem at the end of that time is the axe of the Dwarven Lords. The giant alliances were fractured, some allied with the astral plane, the majority allied with the primordials, some even allied with Secular, the exarch of Melora. These aquatic giants constructed an artifact called Wave. The primordials, during all of this, greatly outnumbered the gods, so they were vastly overconfident and have never really organized themselves into armies per se. They are fundamentally chaotic beings anyway, so I doubt this would have been possible without the influence of Tharizdun. At some point, though, they created the Archons to greatly increase their martial power in the outer planes. There were pitched battles that saw the Archons defending against the onslaught of angels and the first of the dreaded abominations. Meanwhile, the forces of the primordials were being sapped, with their gods here kidnapping earth elementals and transforming them into Medusas, while the goddess Sehanine stole water elementals and transformed them into doppelgangers. Other elemental entities, such as the genies, were allied with the primordials, while the Dao and the Efreet followed their inherent greed to remain neutral and play both sides of the conflict for enormous wealth. Sehanine and Melora created the halflings, but abandoned them as the conflict shifted focus, and they were later adopted by Avandra, who blessed them with good fortune to give them the edge they needed to survive. The war became so devastating that the gods feared the primordials would destroy fundamental aspects of the cosmos, so they divided those aspects between them, as best suited their personal ideals. These became the portfolios of the gods. Learning of this, Baphomet created the Minotaurs as his soldiers in his bid to replace Melora as the god of nature. At some point in this conflict, the Pegasi were created by another greater god. Great primal spirits were being roused at this point, protecting whole worlds from being destroyed. One of these was called Stormhawk. Other elder spirits helped protect the mortal humanoids caught in the crossfire. From the remnants of Lakal, the Living Gate, who was shattered in an attempt to seal the Far Realm, the first shard mines were formed, though at first they were caught up in a tragic war with the devastated Quam people, now bereft of home and patron deity. It was a bitter conflict that spanned all of creation, seeding great destruction. Abominations, unholy living weapons were birthed on both sides of the war in order to find some super weapon that could shatter the ranks of their enemies. Ironically, Karseri, the astral dominion where the gods bred their abominations, would ultimately be repurposed as a prison to hold them forever. Death's Reach, at the core of the Shadowfell, was another key strategic point, a repository of captured weapons of mass destruction. It was sealed shut by the primordials in hopes of trapping the souls of the dead to consume them for power. Whole worlds perished in the conflict. The astral dominion known as the Forgotten Sanctuary is the only remaining continent of one of these dead worlds, whilst Athos, the world of the Dark Sun, was doomed to its ultimate fate by becoming a world from which the Primordial successfully drove away the gods, opening it up to the taint of defiling magic. Initially, the war did not go well for the gods. In fact, the origin of the catastrophic dragons was due to their defection from what they considered the weaker side, and their transformation by the Primordials into living engines of chaos and destruction. There were many key battles, the events of which are simply incredible, such as when the entirety of Mount Celestia was dropped onto a super powerful primordial, its name now removed from all record, its form crushed forever beneath the seven mounting heavens. One of the first battles was between the god Akra, who fought and killed Tabrach T, known as the Queen of Bronze, and she was actually the first primordial to die in the war. The renown of this battle is the reason Akra was thereafter known simply as the god Bane. This also served to unite a group of gods under Bane's command and help them fight more efficiently. This pantheon was so much stronger as a result, as the gods who remained independent did not fare so well, and this trend of forming into pantheons continued. At this point, of course, as the conflict escalated, other pantheons from other worlds were called to the Dawn War. So a lot of pantheons from extant other cultures and religions from other places, the Norse pantheon, the Egyptian pantheon, etc., were drawn in. The Greek pantheon. Norse. For example, one of the most destructive battles of the war occurred after the lattice of heaven was shattered, as Cord descended from the heavens to hunt down the primordial servants in the elemental chaos. Wrath blinded him to the risks and the destruction he wrought, as he was literally tearing mountains apart as he searched for his enemies. Before he could cause too much devastation, the dreaded Slard Lord Yorl, de facto ruler of the plane of Limbo, confronted the god. The two fought to a standstill, for the closer the Lord of Entropy moved to the beginning of time, the more powerful he became. From that fact, you can see how difficult it is to piece together some of these events, as the gods and primordials were moving through time, as well as interdimensional space. No strike the god made could slow down Yorl's ravenous scythe, and Cord knew he faced certain doom standing alone against the Slard's horrific might, which, was devastating. With one mighty roar, he leapt up into the heavens, masking his retreat with a boiling storm which blocked any pursuit. Suffice to say, it was not a good time to be a mortal creature living anywhere near a mountain at that point. In his rage, did Cord leave behind remnants of the magics used to uplift whole mountains? Who knows? Not looking at you, Netherall Empire. Cord was in his element in the battles. He slew Tantageras in single combat, and it was his victory and the death of Sehil which marked the end of the Dawn War. But many gods and primordials died. The triple flail of Yenogu was created from the bones of the god he slew. In the final years of the Dawn War, in his arrogance, Io faced Eric Hughes, the King of Terror, alone and was killed. The Draconic myth states that his children, Tiamat and Bahamut, sprang from two halves of his body and slew Erakus, then turned on each other. Tiamat fled, but we know that Bahamut and Tiamat were just two of many of Io's first creations. Io's death was a disaster on multiple counts. His violent death caused a rift to be torn between the planes. Haramathur, tasked by the gods with guarding the astral plane, realized that the only way to prevent the primordials from using the rift to invade the astral sea is to close it off with his own essence. He sacrificed himself by turning himself and everything around him to stone, thereafter sealing the rift. Torog destroyed the primordial Garash, battling him deep beneath the earth, but was cursed and mutilated by horrific injuries. His constant torment twisted his psyche, and he remains bound in the Underdark. The primordial Haimnathun, the Blood Lord, was slain. His corpse was cast into the astral sea. His black blood filled the maze of tunnels, which eventually became the Keening Delve. Orcus, Demogorgon, and Rimnon faced the god Amoth in his domain of Kalandurin. Though Amoth managed to destroy Rimnon and nearly slew Demogorgon, Orcus struck him down, and his realm became a shattered land of fear. Meanwhile, events took place within the Fae pantheon that would shape the destiny of all elves. Loth led her chosen, corrupted and misled followers against the other elves. She may also have descended into the abyss to search for power and became corrupted, perhaps driven mad by the heart of the abyss. In this conflict, the Raven Queen, allied with Corellon, waged war in the Feywild, ending with the banishment of the Drow and their goddess. Some elves departed from the natural world. Those who remained in the Feywild to rebuild the ruined kingdoms became known as Eladrins. After the conflict, the Raven Queen took the abandoned domain of Fate from Loth. Loth timed all of this to take advantage of the chaos caused by the Dawn War. After Loth's treachery, Corellon and Cernine left the Feywild to fight alongside with the other deities in the Astral Sea. They are still not on speaking terms with Loth, obviously. With the combined forces of Miska the Wolf Spider and the Queen of Chaos, all seemed lost for the deities. But then an Exarch of Moradin and 7 angels of Bahamut, known as the Wind Dukes of Aqua, crafted the Rod of Law in Torzak Belgrun, the Soul Forge of Moradin. With this rod, they struck down Miska the Queen and the Queen of Chaos, who dissipated into the abyss, only to return at another abyssal eclipse. Though the banishing of Miska to an unknown plane caused the shattering of the Rod of Law into the Rod of 7 parts, their fall turned the tide of war for the gods' favour. With their queen defeated, the Obrynths retreated into hiding, but watched in horror as the title of Prince of Demons was claimed by Demogorgon. With his new power, Demogorgon fought back the gods from the abyssal realm. Pazuzu, the Obrynth demon prince, whispered words of deception and corruption into the angel Asmodeus's ears. Asmodeus grew proud and hateful of his position as prison keeper of Tharizdun and sought out the Shard of Evil instead, abandoning his duty. Claiming a sliver of the Shard, he created his ruby rod and fought his way back to the Astral Sea. He who was forgave Asmodeus his transgressions, but later scorned the Archangel for allowing too many innocents to die in battle. Asmodeus reasoned with the gods in exchange for more power. He would ensure the war with the demons would never again spill over into the astral realm, as long as he could claim power of his own through mortals which had transgressed the gods' laws. This was the pact that he made with them. Shortly afterward, Asmodeus killed his divine patron, possibly after having conspired with Zahir. Some sources claim Zahir was the one who did the foul deed. With the creator of the humans dead, Zahir claimed humans as his own, since the dead deity could not deny permission. The other gods defeated Zahir and freed the humans from his control. In his dying breath, he who was bound Asmodeus to an internal prison in Bartor, cursing him and throwing him from the heavens, and his followers were cursed with broken diabolical forms. The once idyllic plane of Bathion was twisted and corrupted as Asmodeus then seized his former overlord's divinity and created a rigid hierarchy of power, becoming one of the only entities to control an entire plane of existence. Having devised a way to subvert and harvest mortal souls, he bargained with the gods for the right to punish mortal souls who had broken the gods' rules. During the war, Asmodeus' skills could not be ignored, and the other gods compacted with the Archfiend, granting him autonomy in return for his aid in defeating the Primordials. This took care of the war against the demons, and the demons rose up to overthrow the Obrynths. So, when the war ends, the gods have devised new tactics by banding together in small groups that the gods set out to destroy the mightiest primordials. So this was the formation of the pantheons. They also formed the portfolios, protect aspects of reality with their lives, essentially from attack by beings that would unmake reality. Carceri was now the prison of the gods and contains many of the absolute horrors and abominations that they created in the Dawn War as super weapons that were unstoppable by individual gods and primordials alone. Death's Reach. During the Dawn War, the mechanism for ensuring the spirits of the dead were sent to their former reward was grievously disrupted. Unable to restore Death's Reach to its former function, the gods sealed the place to remain forgotten for eternity and devise other fates for the souls of the dead, creating a pathway through the ethereal plane. The Jinn are bound into mundane objects as punishment for warring against the gods. Those Jinn who were free lose much of their power, and this is the reason why the genies are so often found in bottles and flasks. Graveminder's cult, originally dedicated to watching the prisons of the primordials, was founded around this time with a few generations at the end of the Dawn War. The Neras were created from a group of powerful invokers known as the Sect of 70, whose members believed that the gods were too detached from the worldly affairs to protect mortals from the threats that lingered in the aftermath of the Dawn War. So they've been tasked with a lot of divine power. And the princes of elemental evil, of course, avoided defeat at the hands of the gods, except Imix, who was destroyed, and they escaped into the far reaches of the elemental chaos, where they remain in exile. The scattered Primordials ceased trying to unmake the world, and with the death of the Primordial Sehil at the hands of the god Cord, the final battle of the Dawn Wars was ended in the gods' favour. By banding together in small groups and forming up portfolios, the mightiest Primordials were unseated, the gods became supreme, and this tactic eventually won the gods' victory. It was a brutal war with many losses on both sides. So, there you have it. That was the Dawn War. Thanks for listening. I'll be back again with more for you very soon. Just a reminder, if you're not subscribed already, feel free to do so. Just be sure to hit the notification bell as I upload at crazy hours of the day. For access to all of the scripts and occasional special offers, consider becoming a patron of the channel on Patreon for a minimum of just $1 per month. You'll have access to all of the scripts that I produce. Join the community on our Discord server. Come say hi. I'm on there quite frequently. All of the links are available on in the description down below, and also on the banner at the front of my YouTube page. And please do check on the community tab on my YouTube page, as I upload updates and polls and things like that fairly frequently. Thanks for listening, everyone. I'll catch you again soon.